All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you all so much who are tuning in live on Facebook. We will give it a couple minutes to get situated here and have you all hop on and join us. But I want to, of course, share with you who I am, kind of the flow of the show. Many of you have been watching each and every week for the Resources Within Reach series, which happens Thursday nights at 6 p.m. We're so glad for all of the amazing resources to be here with me and to share with all of you. So that's exciting. And then if you're not able to catch this live, you can of course catch us on YouTube, wherever you're listening to your favorite podcast. And then of course here on Facebook as well. So I am Christie Freeze. I'm the founder of CAREbyChristie, which is creating a roadmap for elder care. And part of that roadmap is resources. So today, I'm so excited. I have Rebecca Geyer here with me live. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You're so welcome. I'm so excited. We haven't actually got to kind of reconnect in quite some time. So this is awesome to be here together-ish on Zoom. So if you could, let's just dive right in. If you could just share with us who you are, how you got here, and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Rebecca Geyer. I'm an estate planning and elder law attorney. I have an office in Carmel where I've been in practice in these areas of the law for 22 years now, which is hard to believe. I decided to actually focus my career on estate planning and elder law because I really wanted to work with families and I had zero desire to do divorce work as an attorney. So the nice thing about estate planning and elder law is I'm working with families, but usually it's not an adversarial relationship. Usually I'm coming in to be a resource for them, just as you are a resource for people who are looking for assistance as older adults. So I'm a third generation attorney, believe it or not. We've all done different things, but one of the reasons I got into the law was because my father and grandfather had done it, and I always saw what they did and associated that with helping people. But I ended up focusing on elder law also because my mom was a late in life child for her parents. My grandmother was 43 when she had my mom. So by the time I came around, my grandmother was in her 70s. So her parents were actually almost a full generation older than my dad's parents. There was almost 20 years that separated the two of them. And my mom's parents actually lived with us on and off. And I saw my mom trying to deal with two young kids and take care of her parents and realized what she was going through. And it made me want to help older adults and families going through it. I saw my mom have to take away my grandfather's keys and deal with trying to find an appropriate living arrangement for my grandparents. And I knew it was not easy, and I wanted to provide my knowledge and help in those areas.
That's incredible. I am, first of all, fascinated about the third generation. That is so cool.
It's pretty good. My brother's even a lawyer too, but we have all done different things.
Hey, that's okay. You just kind of cover the whole gambit. You can just do it all.
Okay.
And it sounds like you really got to see that true picture of, I think, now we call it the sandwich generation, where you have kids at home, your parents that you're caring for, and you're kind of in limbo. Like, who do I help? What do I do? And I have to imagine when she was navigating that, there weren't as many resources or
there were very few. My mom went back to work when my brother started kindergarten, and I remember she picked us up from after school care, and we had to go to my grandparents' house. My grandmother decided she was no longer going to cook anymore, and my mom would pick us up, take us to my grandparents. She would cook my grandparents' dinner and then take us home and make us dinner and put us to bed. It was crazy. I don't know how she did it all. It was such a busy time, and it was not easy on her. And eventually, I remember vividly, my dad sent her to New York to see his parents because she just needed a break.
Oh, and I can only imagine, I know this is true, that so many people watching right now, especially if you're a family caregiver, that situation, whether it was 20 years ago or now, is so relatable. There are so many people navigating that, and there are tons of resources. So
it's so difficult. No matter how many resources there are, you're trying to take care of your loved one on a personal basis and still deal with your own children or your own job or anything else that might be coming your way. And certainly COVID-19 has not made that process any easier. So I really feel for caregivers who are really trying to do their best. So many of them have been caring for loved ones at home or caring for their loved ones maybe in an independent environment where they really could use their older adults could use some help because they're concerned about being cut off or not being able to visit them during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it has been a difficult year as a result.
Yeah, for sure. And for me personally, I feel like I keep referencing myself as the bridge. Like, I just want to bridge the gap between the family caregivers and the resources, because to go like Google right now, and even like, let's use your mom as an example. When would she have even had time or energy to go find those on her own? Like, that's
Right.
it's not realistic. And so after seeing as many family caregivers as I have, and I'm sure you have as well, it's kind of like, okay, well, how do we make this an easy process for them to get connected to the resources that make sense for what they need? Not, here's everything, figure it
Yeah,
out.
it's a great point, because there's so much information out there on the web, but that doesn't necessarily tell you what to do first, what steps to take, whether the information you're reading is applicable to your state or your particular situation. And we do have to be, people in this area of work have to be someone who connects those in need with the appropriate resources. I do some work with the Alzheimer's Association, and I think it was the Minnesota chapter of the Alzheimer's Association who did a survey, and they found that if people were left on their own to go and find resources, on average, it took them 2 years to get them in place for their loved one. But if they had the information provided to them, usually those resources were in place within only 2 weeks. So that's a huge difference.
That is incredible. I helped somebody recently who told me that I saved her 15 to 25 hours of searching on her own. And I thought that was like, blew my mind, because to me, I'm just like, oh, everybody should know this. Like, let me just tell you all the things. And so for somebody who's not navigated this or had to figure this out, can you imagine spending 2 years just digging, figuring it out?
I'm not even sure that they're digging the whole 2 years, but they're so overwhelmed with what they have to do on a daily basis, they don't even have time to get it in place. Just having the time to sit down and find the resource and then make the call or schedule that appointment is something they just can't fit in for 2 years.
Right. Fascinating. I'm still stuck on that. That is insane. Yeah. Okay. We kind of went on a tangent about that, and I'm so glad that we did. Okay, so we talked about what led you here, but I kind of want to jump to this question. We'll talk more about your specialties, like what you prefer to do, who are like a good fit for your practice. But I mentioned this to you right before we hopped on about, I hear a lot of people say, well, I have a family member that's an attorney. Like, I don't need an elder law attorney. So can we quickly maybe unpack what the benefit is for having an elder law specialty?
Sure. So there are lots and lots of different areas of the law in which you can practice. And elder law is a specific subset within the law. And most attorneys, unless they have specific training and education in this area, do not understand or know the laws related to older adults. You have to have a continued education on federal benefits, state benefits, guardianships, advance directives, etc. So as an elder law attorney, and I will just preface this by saying I teach elder law at the law school in the spring every year, and I'm teaching my students now, and I tell them this. What an elder law attorney does is they meet and they assist families and caregivers when a person may no longer be able to live as independently as they once could. So we are trying to assist and determine what can be done to keep that individual independent for as long as possible. Can they stay in their home? Do they need to move into a different living arrangement? Do they have legal documents in place to make sure someone can act for them if they can no longer act for themselves? And that may lead down the road of us needing to prepare legal documents or obtain a legal guardianship if they don't have those documents in place and they no longer have capacity to do things on their own. And then what most people are concerned about, of course, is the high costs of care. And so we're meeting with families to determine how to best use their resources to pay for the costs of care, whether or not we can avail ourselves of things like Medicaid benefits or veterans benefits, dealing with Medicare and Social Security issues so that our individuals and caregivers that we are counseling get the best care they need and make sure that they can pay for it appropriately. You can't really do this without the most knowledge, and you need to understand that elder law and the things that we discuss can't really be done in a bubble. You have to take a holistic approach. You need to understand tax consequences of using certain assets, what you can pre-plan or not pre-plan with in order to assist a client and make sure that what you're doing is lawful and is not going to put them in a bad situation later on down the road.
Yeah, beautifully said. And the holistic approach really stuck out to me because I think that it's required. Like that's a shift that we're kind of making, I think, as an industry, that it's not necessarily a cookie cutter solution.
It's not.
Rarely ever a cookie cutter solution.
What you do and what I do, there are tools in our toolbox, but how we apply them is unique to every situation. And that really needs to be understood by the client. What they might read online as a potential solution may not be a solution that's going to work for them. Yeah. And so we really want to get to know our clients, understand their family situation, family dynamics, their assets, so that we can guide them to appropriate resources and an appropriate plan to best meet their needs. But always on top of mind in what we do is trying to keep an individual independent and autonomous as long as possible.
I love that so much. Same here. I've created a roadmap for elder care. I'm working on like a video course for that so that folks can kind of take the reins and do it themselves if they desire that route. But something that kept coming up for me is that you could maybe have one solution and then your situation changes. And then you've got a whole new set of solutions. And so you need to also keep top of mind, like where's our current circumstance? And how do we navigate this best based on our goal? Also knowing what the goal is. And I often, especially in community settings, I often heard, well, I just want to stay home. I just want to stay home. You can. You 100% can. I just want, as many that serve seniors and older adults do, I just want you to be safe. And so how do we create that so that you have the tools that you need, the safety that you need, everyone's wrapped around you, and then we move forward.
And we're really lucky here in Indiana because Indiana really has adopted an age-in-place program. So as you already know, and as I deal with on a regular basis, I love being able to tell clients if they start to need assistance, they don't have to leave their homes in order to get that. Sometimes leaving their home is what's best for them. They may be too isolated or they require too much care to be on their own at home.
For sure.
But being able to keep someone in the home that they love, surrounded by, their family or friends who are nearby is an important thing. And sometimes it can be a detriment to move people away from that environment too soon.
For sure. I think that's like a common misconception too, is that I know I found when somebody kind of gave me that objection, like, well, I don't want to do this because I just want to stay home. And then I would say, well, you can, let's figure out how we make that work. They were almost kind of taken aback, like, what? I thought that was going to get me out of this conversation. No, you can totally make it work. There's so many ways to make that work successfully. And yeah, community settings, I would move in today if they would let me. Apparently,
yeah, there's a lot of them. I feel the same way. I'm like, oh, you're going to cook for me and clean for me, and there's people, happy hour and
in a salon
activities. I'll be right in.
Sign me up. Yes.
As many times as I meet with people who say they want to stay in their home, I think that's great if it's appropriate. But I will say for community settings, for a lot of people, I feel like there's a lot of clients that I deal with who don't realize how isolated they are living at home sometimes too. Their days are just filled, especially right now due to COVID. They go to the mailbox and then they're back in the house watching TV, and that's the sum total of their interaction on a daily basis. And so sometimes being in a community can be very freeing for them because they have the ability to have social interaction. But again, every situation requires thought and understanding of what the person's goals and circumstances are to make the right fit.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree. So who would you say, or who do you prefer, and at what stage do you prefer that folks kind of reach out or maybe start that process with you?
Well, as elder law attorneys, there's really two types of clients that we see. We either see people who are very concerned about the costs of long-term care and they want to get ahead of the game by doing some pre-planning now because they're concerned about needing care in the future. I would say that maybe 20% of the people that I see on an elder law side of things come in for that purpose. The vast majority of people I see often are coming to me due to a crisis situation. I'd love to talk about pre-planning, but the reality is, even though we all know at some point we are likely going to need care in the future, or we're going to have, we are going to die. It's hard to admit those things to ourselves and do planning ahead of time. And so as a result, we are often doing planning when an actual need arises, when someone has had a fall or developed Alzheimer's disease or has a stroke or Parkinson's or whatever the case may be. So I always like to assure people it's never too late to call an elder law attorney. Even if you already have a loved one who's living in a nursing facility, there are still things we can do. But what that planning looks like is different depending on whether you come in before care is needed or at the time care is already in need of being in place.
Okay. Very interesting. That's interesting that it's about 20% that pre-plan.
It's certainly a concern. I will tell you, estate planning and estate administration is about half of the work of my practice, and elder law is the other half. And I will tell you, years ago when I started doing estate planning work, 50% of the people that came in, their biggest concern was taxes. We didn't really talk a lot about care. Now that's shifted. The biggest concerns that I hear from people are making sure in the long run from an estate planning side that two things. They want to make sure that assets are protected for their family, and if a child divorces, that they don't lose their inheritance, and they're concerned about losing their life savings to the cost of care. So sometimes we do pre-planning as a result of that, but it is not as many people as you might think overall, because a lot of pre-planning involves the loss of control, and that's not always appetizing to people. So we have other means that we use to go through and put planning in place as a safeguard.
Yeah, I know that you were on a panel recently with Sarah from Geyer Associates, and I actually did her, the first phase of her pre-planning workbook, and how she eases you into it. I hope that people will take advantage of her service also, because to me even, and I shared this with her, even doing it with somebody that I knew it was basic information. I was not like giving her like a vial of my blood, like nothing catastrophic was happening, but I still felt nervous.
It's hard to sit down and put it all in black and white and think through those things. I mean, I jokingly say, why would anyone want to do what I do? Because I sit around and talk about death and taxes all day. However,
it's thrilling stuff.
Comfort associated with it, because we have some peace of mind to give to families. But what Sarah lays out and the thoughtfulness behind thinking through decisions for what you're leaving as a legacy to your family, what you can do to ease the burden on care providers is really, really important. And I like to emphasize that with clients as well, or even when I do speaking arrangements like this, there are a lot of things that you can do that do not require you to hire anyone else to make it easier on your loved ones.
Totally.
Just little things that you can do, like making sure they have copies of your health insurance cards and a list of the medications you take and the doctors you see, and important advisors, copies of passwords, that sort of thing, really makes it so much easier in a crisis situation if your loved ones are already armed with that information, rather than having to go discover it as a result of that crisis.
Yeah, I constantly feel like if you can even present it that way somehow, like out the gate, that especially older men want to protect. They want to. And so when you can approach it from that lens of, this is how we protect them, this is how we set them up for success, this is how we avoid extra grief and turmoil and overwhelm when you pass, that's the greatest gift. That's what you can leave behind for them, if anything.
Right. It's very true. I've had a few cases like that. I will tell you, one of the things I've noticed over all the years I've been doing this is the burden of paying bills is generally not shared equally among a couple. Usually one or the other does it. They pay the bills and manage the finances. So if something happens, often the surviving spouse has no clue what to do. They never had to handle that. And so having important advisors down as a support system who can guide that person. I mean, I've had clients who've never even written a check in their lives because their loved one always did that for them. One of my clients actually runs, it's not running right now, but he runs a men's grief group through St. Luke's Methodist Church. And it's amazing to sit and listen to the gentlemen who have lost their spouses, and just they talk about how much they never realized their wives did for them until they had to do these things for themselves. And the person who runs the group has done an amazing job. Really, it's almost like a life skills class, but for older adults who are grieving, because for a lot of them, this is the first time they've had to deal with some of these things on their own.
Yeah. that when I was in community settings, that was the constant thing that I would hear is that, oh, and vice versa too. It's definitely more common in that the male dominant side of it, but there were women that would be like, I've never even had to look at that. I've never had to do that before. And so now what do I do? And even going through that beginning thing with Sarah, there were things that I was like, I gotta go find that. I don't know.
I joked with my husband, we refinanced our mortgage last year, and I had to go through, and I completed all the paperwork, but we had to check something on his credit report. He couldn't answer any of the questions about who his loans were through because I pay all the bills. So I was like, you know what? You really need to pay attention to this folder I put aside for you.
I made you your own life skills folder.
That's right, exactly. If something happens to me, it's all in this document.
I love that. Oh, it's wild. It really is. Okay. Is there anything, I know we're going to kind of still talk about a couple more things, but is there anything at this point that you think that we've forgotten or left out? Anything real big that you want to share?
I don't think so necessarily about elder law. I mean, I just want people to know that elder law attorneys really are a little different in that they have knowledge and expertise related to public benefits that your average attorney does not possess. And so if you're going to talk to someone about protecting assets or availing yourselves of Medicaid or even Medicare issues or dealings with Veterans Administration, you need to make sure you go to someone who understands those laws and can assist you so that you get the help that you need.
Absolutely. It's like everyone has their own kind of specialty or like a boutique style service, and this is your specialty. This is
right. The law is so broad these days. My father was what I would refer to as a general practice attorney. Okay. He had his own law firm, and he did bankruptcy and divorce and small business and, you know, some criminal work and estate planning. But now the law is so complex, just keeping up with the things related to my areas of practice is a full-time job. I don't know how people dabble in areas of the law anymore because the law has become so detailed and so specific that you really do need to seek people out who deal with that particular type of law. You know, I am definitely upfront with clients. If someone calls me, for example, with an employment law issue, that is not my area of expertise, and I'll be happy to refer them to someone else. Yeah. And I get a lot of referrals from other attorneys who don't do what I do, and that is because the law is so specific.
I love that. Yes, it's just so important to find your person, stay with your person. I know you mentioned like building a relationship and getting to know them, and that's a large part of why I'm doing these interviews as well. Is I want people to know, they now see your face, they know you, they hear a little bit about your background, and I feel like that kind of reduces the resistance to picking up the phone and making a phone call or right. reaching out and at least just starting the conversations. There's no harm in doing that, and if anything, it's putting you further ahead. You're like, not jumping the gun, but you're preparing in advance so that you can be proactive instead of reactive.
Right. I want people to know that, you know, a lawyer is just a regular person, and I've certainly experienced a lot of what my clients are going through, and I want them to feel comfortable when they contact us. Our tagline is compassionate counsel for every generation, and I really make sure that that is a theme throughout our office. I want people to know that we are there for them, that we're responsive to their situation, and we're upfront about fees and how we handle cases so that they know how it's going to be the entire time we represent them.
Yeah. And we should have just started with this, but you all do an amazing job. You really do. You have an amazing reputation. When people heard that I was having Rebecca Geyer, they're like, oh, what? Like, yeah, I know. She's amazing. Everybody should watch. Yeah. Okay. So my last question for you is, what is your favorite go-to, I'm going to say self-care so that it makes sense, but your favorite self-care practice that you maybe do just for you?
So if I have the time, I would say self-care practice. I would love to go get a massage. I realize that I pay for one of those services where I could go monthly, but I get busy and I don't actually book that for myself. But my daily time for me, if you really want to know what I do to get away, is I love to read. I read all the time. I have forsaken sleep to read books. I'm not kidding. And I just have always found reading to be an escape, and I love to do it. I do it at night. My husband says, "Oh yes, you're always reading before you take that 2-hour nap on the couch before I wake you up to actually go to sleep," which is the truth. I'm an early riser, so I'm usually up at 5 a.m. But then about 8:30, I don't have much energy left.
Yeah, you've been reading your heart out. That's an
Yeah.
amazing practice, though. That's awesome. And what we might do, because I heard that first part, I'm just going to start pretending like I'm having a Zoom interview with you during the time you should schedule a massage. And then
Yeah.
you'll think you're working, but really I'm going to send you to get a massage.
Yes, I need to do it.
Yeah.
I have my packages all saved up, and I just need to go.
Oh, you should just get like a 6-hour straight, like just a full day massage.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Okay, well now
I could just fall asleep in there, and that would be great.
Wonderful. All right, well, I know that we don't talk often, but I am going to follow back up with you on this and say, Rebecca, have you been doing your
Better
self-care?
go. Yes.
All right, well, tell us real quick where everyone can find you. I will, of course,
Sure.
drop everything in the comments. So whatever you'll share with us, that would be great, and then I'll put them in the comments.
Sure. So our office is in Carmel. We're located on the southwest corner of 116th and Meridian, just south of IU North Hospital.
Okay.
We can meet with clients currently in the office, or we do meetings by Zoom or FaceTime, or we'll even go to them depending on the circumstances. If they can't get to us, we have always made house visits, and we still have even during the pandemic. But of course, we try to be safe and wear masks and be appropriate and honor social distance guidelines. But we are here. You can reach us at 317-973-4555 or at rgeyerlaw.com on the internet. And you can always contact us through there on our website as well.
Amazing. I, of course, will write all of those informations in for all of you so that you don't miss it. And I really I'm so appreciative of your time. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I really appreciate being asked to be here, Christie, and I love what you're doing. And thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. Thank you. I hope you have a great evening, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.